Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the 10 episode review of Marketing for the Modern Brand podcast. It's been a phenomenal last 10 to 12 weeks or so, learning from 10 of Australia's best marketers and brand strategists. I've absolutely loved it. I hope you've loved it too. There has been some incredible insights put forward, and I know that for a lot of listeners, time is of the essence. And it's not always easy to listen down, sit down and listen to a 40, 60, 90-minute podcast and gather all the information that is within them. So I wanted to do this 10-episode review today, dissect probably the 2 to 3 best insights that have been provided, the real gold from each of the 10 guests, and just relate them to marketing and video marketing and where things are moving towards in 2025, so you can be primed and ready to go as a brand to hit the ground running when we tick over into 2025. So sit tight, enjoy. This is the 10 episode review of Marketing for the Modern Brand podcast, and let's get right into it. So first up, we had Peter Sandor join us on the pod as the inaugural guest, and for me, that was probably one of the most insightful episodes. I've known Peter for over 18 months. We met at a business networking group up in the CBD in Melbourne, and we had a conversation, I reckon, around about 12 months ago or so. And at that time, I would have been about 18 months into business, so I was still learning and grasping the idea of business. And I was speaking with Peter, and he said to me, Didier, what is it that makes you different? What makes you stand out? What makes you move away from the sea of sameness and become a sea of one? And truthfully, at the time, I had to really think about this because this was something I hadn't thought about at the time. Being so new to business, not understanding that side of things. Obviously, in hindsight now, I think, geez, why did I not know about it at the time? But it's one of those things when you first start out that you're not really thinking about. And within the 10-minute conversation that we had one-on-one, Peter just provided so much wisdom. And I left there in 10 minutes thinking to myself, wow, I've just got so much out of this. I've got so much work to do now, which is good, of course. And I was just so keen to get out there and start implementing things. So having Peter on the pod and really diving into what it is that he does, his framework that he uses with his clients, it was really fascinating to just go a little bit deeper than what I had learned about before from Peter. So that was probably one of the best episodes of the 10. And I've got 3 statements here that he's brought forward that I think are really, really fascinating. The first one he says is, most people are trying to solve the wrong problem too early, talking about themselves, and should be thinking about what their target audience needs. It's too easy to fall into the trap of what's easier, doing brand strategy and brand story, or getting my website SEO, SEM, or ads sorted. And this is a really important statement that Peter has brought forward here. And it is easily a trap that is so easy to be falling into as a marketer. We do it all the time. And it's not just in brand strategy, it's in video marketing, it's in content, it's in everything. It is do the sexy before the effective. Everyone does it. I've done it before. Everyone does it. You think about, let's get the website done, get the logo done first, and that's branding. Not. Branding is your strategy. It's your story. It is how you're going to stand out from the competition. In content marketing, it's let's run socials, let's run ads before doing a bit of a content plan behind that. In video marketing, I like to say this to my clients. I say, we can't put the roof on the house if we haven't built the walls yet. The roof is the brand film that we produce for you, but the walls are the marketing strategy and structure of a campaign behind that. You just can't put a roof on if you haven't bought the walls. And this is all reinforced here from Peter. It is talking about do the brand strategy, create the brand story, understand how you're going to differentiate yourself, understand what it is that your target audience needs, rather than talking about yourself, doing the SEO, doing your website, etc., etc. Prioritize the effective before the sexy. He goes on and he continues and he says, When you are in an industry and you tend to look at the competition all the time and say, we can do that too, well, then you tend to merge or become just like them. And again, this is really, really important to understand. And again, it's a really easy trap to fall into. As companies, as brands, as marketers, we tend to look at our competition for inspiration sometimes, but to understand what they're doing. And if you do that over and over and over and over again, that is what you're exposed to. We are a product of what we expose ourselves to in terms of friends, in terms of media, in terms of books, etc. So if you're exposing yourself to just your competitors' content all the time, or your competitors' marketing all the time, well, that's what you're consuming. And that is what you're going to be implementing within your own marketing. So it's great to look at them every now and then, just keep an eye on what are they doing? Are they doing something a little bit different that actually is really effective? Or what are they doing that we can avoid? But if you just keep doing it all the time and consistently using them as a reference point, as opposed to doing your own thing, that's where the danger comes in. And that's when you start to become just like them, as Peter says. Towards the end of the episode, Peter gave another really, really great statement. And he said, great brands are consistent and enduring and stand for one thing over a long period of time. This is such a simple, straightforward statement, but it's one of those things that, again, as marketers, we fall into the trap of doing different things without giving time for one thing to pay off. You think about what a lot of content marketing is these days. It is you post one post, it doesn't hit virality, so you think, oh, that didn't work, let's move to the next one. You do that one. Well, that didn't work, let's move on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. But if you had just given it time to work, if you had to put the strategy in place to make it work and have a bit of a plan behind that, it would have worked out for you. You have to be consistent. You have to be enduring. If you keep going for different things over a period of time and there's no consistency in there, it's just not going to work. Obviously, Peter's come from the perspective here of brand strategy. As a brand, hence being consistent and standing for one thing, one value, one belief, one point of differentiation, whatever it is, and keeping to that for a long period of time, being enduring. But we can take this statement and we can apply that to all facets of marketing. If you're doing an SEO campaign, well, you have to be consistent and enduring on that. You can't just expect to do it one day and get thousands and thousands of traffic to your website and get all the leads from there. No, have to do it over 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, etc., etc. Likewise with video marketing. One film isn't going to do it for you. One post on social media is not going to do it for you. You have to be consistent. You have to be enduring over a period of time. And this is a great reinforcement here from Peter. So moving into the second episode, we had James Pine from James Pine Photography pop on. And this was another great chat. I love James. He's so enthusiastic, so energetic. And he just screams luxury in the work that he does, in the clients he works for. Everything that's gone before his photography, it's just all luxury. And I think that is, if we're talking about using people as a reference point occasionally, he's a great reference point to look at occasionally for the work that he does and for the brands that he works for. He brought forward a very clear statement. He says, when brands are looking at photography, they look at it as a commodity. And as a commodity, the first question they ask is, what is the price? How cheap can you do X number of photos? If this is the main determinant, it is not why are we taking a picture? Where are we going to use a picture? Who's going to see it? Who are we trying to attract? How do we get the best possible picture? And this is a really, really important point raised here by James, is that marketing is so easily commoditized. It doesn't matter what form of marketing, whether it be photography, videography, brand films, SEO, general marketing, advertising, whatever it is. It's so easy to commoditize it and say, okay, how can we achieve this outcome at the cheapest price? And without having thought behind it, again, without having those walls built, why are we doing this campaign? What is the purpose of it? What is the outcome that we're wanting to see? Who's going to actually see it? Why? Where are we going to use it? How do we attract the people that we're wanting to attract? How do we talk to them? If you don't think about this and you just go for the output, then it's very easy to commoditize it. From a business perspective, obviously you don't want to be commoditized because then it's the race to the bottom. But as a marketer, you have to be careful with that, because if you're going to go towards those businesses that are racing to the bottom, and you're going to commoditize the service that you're seeking as a business, you're going to be a direct result of that, because they're going to be cutting corners, right? And if they're cutting corners, they're not going to be giving you the 100% output that you desired in the first place. So if you sit back and you say, okay, why are we taking this picture? Why are we doing this video marketing campaign? Why are we doing this SEO campaign? Where are we going to use it? Who's going to see it? How are we going to talk to them? How are we going to attract them? What do we need to do to get them to come on our side? How do we get the best possible outcome? If you're not asking these questions, you're not building that strategy up, then it's going to be very straightforward, the result that you get. And that is, it's not going to be very good. It's going to fail. And you're going to probably spend a lot more money than you're hoping to initially, because you'll be jumping from service provider to service provider to service provider. So episode 3 saw us dive into the world of Steve Dart and LinkedIn. And this is a platform that I absolutely love. I use it every day. I'm on there every day posting. It is just a fantastic community on LinkedIn. And Steve is definitely the best in Australia in terms of getting the most out of your profile for you. I've worked with Steve about 12 months ago as part of his LinkedIn Excellence program. And the outcome of that has been phenomenal for me. I have gone from not being able to post at all and not knowing what to post to posting every day and getting thousands of impressions. And it has been phenomenal for my business in terms of lead generation and personal branding. Amazing. So I highly recommend Steve. A lot of our episode with Steve was talking about LinkedIn and how you can build out your profile to be the best possible profile, to be client attracting, as he likes to call it. And we also touched on his time at Red Bull, because he was previously the head of marketing at Red Bull when they first launched in Australia. But touching on the LinkedIn side of things, he made a really great point in terms of how your profile should look. He says, have a very good profile photo that is recent and shows a warm smile, beautiful whites of your eyes. Be really trustworthy in your photo. The whites of your eyes show trust. And this is a really good point for the personal brand side of things. And I would love to hear what Kim Elizabeth James's perspective on this is in terms of personal branding, because that's what she does. She's amazing at that. In terms of personal brands, from my perspective on this, is that profile photo is everything. It's that first touch point, whether this be a logo for your brand, or whether this be for a personal brand, it's your actual headshot, it's your image, it's what you post on your LinkedIn, whatever it is. Having that photo of yourself increases trust so much. And all you have to do is look at your LinkedIn impressions and reactions to know that a selfie of yourself or a photo of yourself gets a lot more engagement than a photo of a product that you're working on, a project that you're working on, whatever it is as an alternative. Any photo that is of you gets so much more impressions and so much more engagement on there. One of the other things to consider with profile photos is that on Instagram and TikTok specifically at the moment, and to a lesser degree, YouTube and LinkedIn, a lot of the content creators on there at the moment are bringing forward different colored backdrops. So they're having their headshot image as they normally do, but they're actually bringing a color behind it. So instead of having white, so for example, my headshot image is just white behind it, a lot of them are actually bringing up different colors behind there. And that's kind of like an indicator that they are a creator of content. So it makes them stand out from a regular user. So I'm really interested to see if that's going to come through on LinkedIn a lot more over the next 12 months. I've seen it a little bit in a few different people. I think from my gut feel that the platform will probably stay with more of the professional approach, because that's what the platform is all about. And the white backdrops are probably going to stay, or black backdrops even. But I'd be interested to see if more colors come through as an indicator of content creators on LinkedIn, because there's a lot more coming through now, which is fantastic for the platform and only beneficial for your own content as well. So keep an eye on that going forward. Steve continues in his episode. He says, do what we call problem, solution, outcome. After your introduction in the summary, this is the 3 problems my clients face, and this is the 3 solutions to those problems. And then do a call to action. Then you can actually show you've walked in their shoes, you understand their pain points, and here's the solution for them. I've done this on my own summary page to no one's surprise after working with Steve. And it does help with really identifying what it is that you do to help your clients. And this can be in both B2B or B2C. It works collectively. This is the 3 problems that we face, that your clients face. This is the 3 solutions to those problems. And then there's a call to action to come work with you. Incredibly basic, but incredibly effective. And straight away, if people are watching and reading through your LinkedIn profile and they see, okay, these are the 3 problems that your clients traditionally face. If they relate to any of those problems, they're a lot more likely to come in contact with you as opposed to someone else. Really, really great tip for building out a really solid profile and summary page on LinkedIn. As we were talking about his time at Red Bull, Steve put forward an absolute moment of gold. He says, part of my strategy now when I'm speaking with my clients is not just on LinkedIn, but Red Bull. How can you be a great marketer and do things that are unusual and unique in the market? Do it the Red Bull way, out of the box, come around the corner, do something different, get the attention, and then tell them how good the product is. And I absolutely love this statement from Steve, and that is exactly what Red Bull do. It is massive, unusual, unique, something that no other product would do out there. Gets people's attention, and then they get engaged with the product, and then they learn about how good the product actually is. How can you as a business be like Red Bull? How can you do things that are unusual and unique in your own market to stand out, to be attractive and get the attention that you're wanting? It really makes you stop and think about what your efforts are currently. You're probably doing all the things that everyone else are doing, SEO, content marketing, etc., etc., etc. What activation can you do that is going to be excelling to your business, that's going to stand out and get the attention that you deserve and that you want? Great statement. Do it the Red Bull way. It really makes you start to think. Great statement there from Steve. And he's been part of some amazing activations when he was at Red Bull in Australia, across the country, Perth and Sydney and everywhere in between. Yeah, really, really makes you think. How can you do something that is out of the box and unusual? Grand. That's probably a great word, grand. Massive. Love it. Episode number 4 saw us with Mark Simmons, one of my good friends. And he's the marketing officer at Ballarat Community Health. So this was a little bit different in that we've had 3 guys that all run their own businesses within marketing. And now we're having the perspective of someone that works as a marketer for a company. So it's really good to have that different view. And Mark's an intriguing guy because he's had a 360 perspective on marketing. He's been in front of the camera as an actor, as a voice artist. So he's got both visual and audio experience. He's been behind the camera or behind the microphone, if you want to call it that, as a producer of videos and radio, podcasts, etc. And then he's also worked in marketing as in his current role now. So he's got a full 360 degree view of marketing, which makes him really intriguing. And his understanding is, it's very interesting. I love chatting with him about that. He said, if it is values-based, where it is going to pull on the heartstring of someone, it is relatable and has much better impact for us than trying to sell a product or service. And that is incredibly important, not just for health, which is where Mark works in, because obviously that's quite a dry area, dry subject matter. So if you can make it values-based and relatable and really emotively captivating, well, obviously people are going to be a lot more engaged with it. It's going to be a lot more impactful for them than just trying to sell the product or service that they do sell. If we look at the most effective brand films that are out there. The most effective brand films all have three things in common. One, they are incredibly clear in their messaging, simple, well-defined message. They also have an incredibly relatable storyline or plot presented within them. And that is so that the viewer can really engage with the film. And traditionally speaking, the more relatable the storyline presented, the more impactful and emotively captivating the film is. They work hand in hand. The more relatable, the more emotively captivating. And Mark's touched on everything there. If you can create marketing that pulls on the heartstring of someone and it's relatable, it's going to have a much better impact than trying to sell the product or service that you present. Really gets you thinking. Again, goes back to what Peter was saying. Stop talking about yourself as a business, as a brand, and start asking yourself, what does the customer need? How can you make them feel how you need them to feel? Great perspective from Mark there. He then went on to continue and said, when you flick through a newspaper, everything is quite blurry because you see text everywhere. And it's another ad and another ad and another ad. Maybe I can hold that space and just have a very small call to action in there. And this was a fascinating insight from Mark. He used the example of a newspaper that he had seen, and it was a full one-page ad, and it was just one image, no text on there. But then, and the very bottom left-hand corner from memory, it was the tiniest little word phrase, which had the call to action in there. And it said, "You interested?" with a question mark. 2 words, that's it. And they had brought this entire full page advertisement in the newspaper. Maybe you can hold that space and just have a very small call to action in there. And again, this just goes back to trying to disrupt the commonality of everyday life, because people see the same thing all the time. Another ad, another ad, another ad, another ad. We're sick of it. As consumers and as customers, we're sick of seeing ads all the time. So by having that point of difference, a little small call to action amongst a massive space, really hold that space, commands that space, and see what it does for you. This can be placed onto everything. Maybe it's a film. One of the great examples that could relate to this from a brand film perspective is probably the most famous of all the films from Nike with their Find Their Greatness campaign of the young overweight kid running. It's just one shot, start to finish, 60 seconds, one image, one shot of this obese young kid running along the road. Again, you've got this massive space, but one small little subject. Hold that space, commands that space. If you do it well and you have a really clearly defined message behind it, whether that be behind the image or a voiceover on the film or whatever it is, if you can command that space and hold it, wow, incredibly effective. Makes people stop in their tracks and think about what are they looking at. Think about what James says, high impact and memorable. If you can hold a space and you can command it, wow, that is incredibly impactful, and it's definitely memorable, as we saw in the example of Mark here. He didn't remember the brand, but he could remember the marketing action. And that's memorable. Moving on, Mark brought forward a really important point that as marketers, I think we need to remind ourselves of this a lot. Mark says, it's okay to fail in a marketing campaign. At the end of every campaign, there is a client, and I've got a responsibility to that team to bring people through the door. And sometimes campaigns fail. Maybe I did a call to action that was too far down the line or too narrow a demographic that I was trying to meet. As long as you can have that conversation with your client afterwards and say, I think I missed out because of X, Y, Z, and have a real analysis of what went wrong in the campaign, that is a better learning than having those little wins. And this is fantastic, because as marketers, we get really caught up in that we have to get the result. We have to get the success all the time. It doesn't matter what facet of marketing, SEO, video, audio, whatever. you think about having to get the result every time from every campaign. But realistically, as we know from Peter, the results compound over time. If you're consistent and you're enduring over time, the results are going to come. They're going to add up over time. So whilst a small little campaign may not bring the results, over time, it'll add up. And I'll pop up on the screen just now a little graphic that I developed for a post on LinkedIn to show this exactly working as it is. You can see there the relationship between time and the ROI of the marketing. Over time, the more campaigns that are done, the ROI is increasing. But that first little campaign didn't bring much of an ROI. So it'd be easy to sit there as a marketer and say, well, that's it. We failed the campaign. Let's move on to the next one. But if that campaign actually had a really strong message, it was clearly defined, it was relatable, it had emotively captivating, and you held that space, then maybe you just need to be a bit more consistent and enduring with it and let time provide the ROI for you. Really, really makes you stop and think. And that was a great reinforcement there from Mark. Just every now and then, it's okay if you fail. Just understand why you failed. Have that conversation with your client or with your team internally. And then use those learnings to improve going forward. But don't think that that campaign failed. Maybe it wasn't necessarily that the campaign failed. Maybe you just needed more time to see the ROI that you were after. Episode 5 was an incredible guest. Kate Save, CEO and founder of BeFit Food. What an amazing story that she has. She's gone from having so many health issues as a youngster, which inspired her passion for health and for finding out what's wrong with people and helping them eat themselves better, as she calls it. And she's created this incredibly impactful brand in BeFit Food that has helped millions of people across Australia lose weight and keep the weight off. It's been phenomenal. So to learn a bit more about Kate's story, I'd known a little bit about it beforehand, but as soon as she jumped on the pod, it was just amazing story. And one of the lines that I love from her, she says, if you have really strong intentions and purpose and you listen to people and what they need. She then went on to talk about a few other things. So she got distracted in her points here, but just that line itself is just so powerful. If you have really strong intentions and purpose and you listen to people and what they need, I think she would have gone on and continued to talk about saying that if you do all that, then you're actually really able to help people. And she's done that. She's a great example of that, Kate, in that she has really strong intentions. Her intentions are she wants people to eat better, to lose weight and keep the weight off. Her purpose is to do that. You know, she's come from a place of personal health experiences where she's been in the positions that she was, and she's come out the other side well off health-wise, and she's now able to enforce similar experiences to people that are struggling with their health. And then she's listened to people and she said, what can we do better? How can we do better? How do we make the food better? How do we make the service better? She's listened to people and what they need. And Kate is a great example of that. And again, it goes back to what Peter was talking about. It goes back to what Mark was talking about and Steve as well, to a lesser degree. Find out what it is that your customers need. Not what you need. Don't talk about yourself. Talk about them. Ask them, what do you need? Listen to them. What do you need? Tell me. And be proactive in your response in listening to them and understanding what it is that they actually need. And if you do that, surprise, surprise, it's actually really effective for your business. Who would have thought? The second line from Kate that I love, she goes, stay curious. To look at everything, to see what's out there. Don't think that something won't work, because the things that do work are often not the ones you've backed with your money. It's always something outside the square. And in marketing, it's really easy to get caught into doing the same over and over again. Do the SEO again. We'll do the content marketing again. We'll do the brand film again. But as Kate says, sometimes the best results in marketing are things that you haven't put money into. Something outside the square. Maybe it's a relationship that you have with someone. Maybe it's a conversation that you had with someone down the street. You know, who knows what that is? As a great example, I was just filming in Glenelg over the weekend for a client over in South Australia, and I was filming down at the foreshore at the beach, and there were some dogs running around. So I got some shots of the dogs running on the beach with the ball and stuff that they were throwing around. And I got the shots. I walked away and kept walking out to go do all the other shots that I needed to get. And a couple of minutes later, one of the owners of the dogs comes over and he goes, "Oh, hey, were you filming my dog?" I was like, "Yeah, I hope that was all right." He's like, "Yeah, no worries. Do you mind sending me the footage?" And I think to myself, well, that's a bit of a no read request, but hey, sure, I'll do it for you, no problem. He said, "We've got an Instagram page that we put the dog on." I'm like, "Hey, you do whatever you want to do with it. That's not a problem for me." I was more than happy to give the footage. And look, I highly doubt anything will come out of this interaction. But who knows? Maybe something down the line, as a result of that interaction, a big brand comes to work with me or something like that. I don't know. Who knows? Something outside the square. You never know what's going to happen. It's the conversations and the people that you meet, and not always the things you back with your money, that give you the biggest results in marketing. And Kate has been a great advocate for that. And that's a great statement from her. So thank you, Kate. In episode 6 with Alex Stock, I brought forward a cool little analogy that I hadn't thought of beforehand, but it only came to my mind because Alex was speaking about the idea of a rocket. And I said to Alex, yeah, if your goal as a business is to go to the moon and you start walking towards that, going to the moon, what ends up happening is you start doing laps of the Earth. Right? You don't actually get to the moon, but if you have a bit of planning behind it and you realize, okay, how do we get to the moon? Well, we've got to build a rocket first. Then we've got to use something to fuel the rocket. Then we've got to get people that know how to use the rocket and fly the rocket, etc., etc., etc. If you did that strategy and that planning, well, that gives you actually a proper chance of actually getting to the moon. But if you just walk off towards the moon willy-nilly, start following it as you walk at night, well, you end up walking to China. Right? You do laps of the Earth. You don't get to the moon. So it goes back to what Alex was talking about. He says, if we know why we're doing things and the methods we're going to use to get there, that's just going to give us a better opportunity to be successful. You may have the aim to go to the moon as a business. That's your goal. A great goal to have. Shoot for the stars, as they say. And if you put in the methods that you're going to get there, you know why you're doing it, you know where you have to go to get there, you know what you have to do to build the rocket, as the analogy goes, you may not be successful, but at least it's going to give you a better opportunity to be successful, and it's going to give you those steps towards that success. But if you don't go off with a plan, if you don't have a strategy behind just your campaign, you're just going to do laps of the Earth. You're not going to get to the moon. It goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the roof analogy. Kind of analogy stacking here, just to reinforce the point. You need the walls of the house first before you can put the roof on. You need the strategy of your marketing campaign before you can go out and purchase the ads and run the SEO and do the brand film and do the content marketing. If you don't have any of that, what's the point of doing it in the first place? Fantastic by Alex here. So like Peter, I've known Alex for around about 18 months or so, and we met at the same networking group in the city. And as a result of that, I've been following what Alex has been doing quite closely. And Alex was on a podcast about 6 to 9 months ago, thereabouts, ballpark, with one of his clients. And on that podcast, he spoke about how the result of marketing cannot always be down to marketing, in the sense that if a campaign has failed, it's not necessarily a marketing's fault. It could be the sales approach to your business. So if you've got a campaign, let's use Nike as an example, right? If Nike run a marketing campaign and all their traffic goes to the website to go buy their shoes, but for whatever reason their checkout software is not working, well, is that a marketing fault? Is that marketing's fault for the sales not coming through? Or is that the sales fault because the process for your sale is not working, right? It's the sales fault. It's not the marketing's fault. So we have to remember that if the marketing is not working, well, maybe it's not the marketing's fault. Maybe there's something wrong with the business's processing with sales. Maybe your salesperson is not doing a great job. Maybe you've got a website form where people come to your website, they fill out the contact form, and you don't get back to them within 48 hours and you've lost a sale. Maybe you should be getting back in touch with them within 2 hours, right? You got to look at it from different perspectives here. Maybe the marketing was fantastic. It got them to the point where the marketing was meant to get them to, but then everything else below that, because of your business's processes, was not up to scratch. So Alex says on our podcast, he said, the interplay of marketing with business is vital. Finance and marketing should be best friends. Often in more corporate, larger businesses, marketing and finance seem to fight together. But in marketing, if you're not returning, you shouldn't be doing it. For me, it's simple. I've always said I'd much rather an extra salesperson rather than more advertising budget, depending on the business, of course. When we think about marketing is not advertising. Marketing is the act of taking your product or service to market and all the different ways to do that. And again, this reinforces that point that he made on his client's podcast, in that marketing and sales need to interplay with each other. Just like here, marketing needs to interplay with finance. And collectively, all those three areas need to interplay together with business. It's vital. Marketing is a component. Sales is a component. Finance is a component of a wider business activity. And if one of those strings isn't pulling its weight, that's when you're going to have problems. Very beautifully reinforced here by Alex. So episode number 7, we spoke with Jake Stevens, sports marketer, terrific guy, and he's been to some of the biggest world sporting events, including the Commonwealth Games. And I would love to see where he moves over the next coming years with the relaunch of the 26 Commonwealth Games over in Scotland. So that's going to be exciting. Jake made a fantastic point. I think it goes back to a little bit about what Mark was talking about too. And he said, not everything has to be perfect. Not everything has to be a clean piece. Not everything has to be the perfect post. Things can ladder up and you look at the whole rather than the individual. It's a whole campaign and there are different messages within that campaign rather than a single piece. And this is great. This reinforces that idea of the long-term approach to marketing as opposed to the short-term approach. The results add up over time. They compound, just like interest compounds over time. If you can ladder up your pieces one after the other, you may not have the perfect post, but if you can get the quantity out there and you can do that consistently and enduring, as Peter says, that's going to give you a lot more. It's going to give you a lot more eyeballs on it, which gives you more data to look through, gives you more reinforcement for what was good and what was bad, and then you can make improvements based on those feedbacks. But it also just gives you a lot more breadth of space to talk to people, to your customers. You can put different messages out there. You don't have to have the same message over and over again. You can have those different messages. You think of that Nike Find Your Greatness campaign. They had probably 12 different films within that one campaign. 12 different messages. It wasn't just one single piece. But those 12 individual messages collectively came together to create one single message. And that's what we want to aim for in marketing. Doesn't matter what type of marketing it is. That's what we want to aim for. They don't all have to be perfect, but collectively, they need to work together. And they need to be efficient and tell the message that you wanted to tell. Alrighty, episode 8, Matthew Coyle, Travel Projects. This guy is amazing. I love it. Talk about enthusiastic. This guy is the definition of enthusiastic. So lively, so energetic, and he just loves travel. He just loves it. He can't get enough of it. And he's actually heading on a trip in a couple of weeks' time after this is posted around Australia for 12 months. So best of luck to Matt. Hopefully it all goes well for you. His story is fascinating in terms of he's gone from being a flight attendant as a youngster to working for one of the big name travel agencies in Australia to launching his very own travel agency in the luxury market space. And he's got tickets prices of upwards of $50,000. It's just phenomenal brand, phenomenal man. And one of the key aspects of anything travel is, of course, the imagery. And he said, the first thing we focused on was the visual marketing, the brand, the business, the retail space. We wanted it to be almost like walking into a luxurious hotel lobby, almost that feeling of walking into the hotel and thinking, I've arrived. And this is a great perspective because it makes you think of going back to what Steve was talking about in Red Bull and being out of the box, unique, and you need to be bold. You really need to be bold. And it's about the experience at the end of the day. You're not trying to sell the product. Going back to what Mark said, you're not here to sell the product. You're here to be emotively captivating. How can you be relatable? How can you pull on the heartstring of someone? How can you, as a marketer, make your customers feel like they've arrived? They've walked into a luxurious hotel lobby. How can you do that in your marketing for whatever it is that you sell? How can you present a relatable situation, pull out the associated emotions of that, and convey that through a storyline, through a plot, whether that be visually, audio, or through copy, whatever it is? How can you present all that information and those feelings in particular, which are the most important? How can you convey all of that to your customers before they've even touched foot or felt your product or service in person? How can you do that in your marketing? If you can achieve that, you can tick that box, you win. If you can capture the emotions of someone, make them feel like they've experienced your product or service before they even have, well, they're sold on you before they even touch it, before they even purchase it. They're sold. That's what we all have to think about as marketers. If we can do that, we win. Definitely. Another great example of this from Matt was during COVID. They launched Travel Project just before COVID started. So not a fantastic time to launch a travel agency, but obviously you don't know about that at the time. So whilst all the cafes and the restaurants, et cetera, were doing takeaway, Matt said, what's our version of takeaway? What's the takeaway version of a holiday? And he came up with the idea of the virtual reality headset. He was able to create 94 different experiences from locations across the world and immerse potential customers in these experiences from their living rooms. And he actually gave me the prototype of actually not the prototype, the actual product, the VR headset itself. Just one sec. Here it is. Simple design, made out of cardboard. Incredibly simple, yet so effective. You have that there. That's the goggles there, as you can see it. You put your phone inside here. You wrap it in there. I'll grab my phone. Put your phone in there I had a link to their website with the 94 different experiences. So you just clicked on the link that they sent you, and then you could choose where you wanted to go. You put your phone in there, and then you have the goggles, and you just put that on your head like that. Fantastic idea. They charge, I think he said $35 or something like that for that experience. And as soon as COVID finished, everyone that had purchased one of these boxes during COVID, the first number they dialed after COVID was straight to Matt and Travel Project and said, "Buy me a holiday. Where can I go?" Fantastic. And that's, again, how can you as a business make people feel like they're experiencing everything that you want them to experience and feel before they actually go and do it? This is a phenomenal idea. Again, think about Red Bull. How can we be out of the box? Literally and figuratively. How can you be out of the box? This is fantastic from Matt. And that is the type of marketing that you need to be thinking about as a brand and as a business. Be bold. Be brave, as Peter says. High impact and memorable, as James says. And you can do that. You can make those experiences be captured. As we said before, you win. Fantastic from Matt. Really, really good. Episode number 9, we had Marg Lange on, and that was a great chat. I've known Marg for best part of 18 months as well, and she's just amazing. She's so generous in her time and in her information, and it's been fantastic to see that she's been doing some amazing things the last 6 months or so. She's been featured on CEO Scoop front page. She's being honoured over in Nashville in under a month's time, up on stage in front of thousands of people as the top business strategist in the world globally for the past year. Phenomenal. And it's well deserved. She's had a very tough 12 months, so it's been good to see that on the other end of it, she's coming out very, very well off in that sense. So fantastic from Marg. I've only got one line from her podcast episode, which I was very surprised about because it was incredibly insightful. But I think this line is probably the best of the best that she provided in gold. It's very short. She said, "True connection is you're relatable. You resonate, you are funny." And that summarizes everything that I've spoken about so far today in this review. True connection is you're relatable, you resonate, you are funny. Relatability, relatable storyline, the emotions, the emotional connection, the experiences, all of that can all be summarized in one single line like that from Marg. Just like the Red Bull example, have this line in the back of your head and really consider, how are you creating a true connection with your customers? And how are they going to return a connection to your business? How can you be relatable? How can you resonate? How can you be emotively captivating? Is it through humor? Is it through something else, some other avenue? Whatever it may be. Just think about it. Great line from Mark here. And if you haven't listened to her episode, I would highly recommend you listen to her episode out of all the guests, because what she brings forward in terms of connection is probably the most relevant going forward in 2025, because it's a bit of a buzz term at the moment, connection and authenticity. But going into 2025, it is going to only increase in importance. So if you listen to any of the episodes, I highly recommend you listen to Mark's episode number 9. Alrighty, episode number 10, the last for the review so far, Kim Elizabeth James. This was a phenomenal guest to have as the 10th, the big number 10. Kim has been responsible for the rise of Reese Plumbing on social media, and she's now working with some incredible brands and individuals with her own startup, Tangerine Tango. So Kim, wish you the very, very best going forward with that, of course. And in terms of social media, there has been no one so far on the podcast that has brought forward as much information on socials as Kim has. One of the best things that she said was happened right at the very start of the episode. She said, the future of those brands that you think, oh my gosh, they are absolutely nailing it online, are actually the ones who have an audience first approach, where you feel like you see yourself in the content. By doing that, you build a stronger community and you actually build out your brand into the lifestyle of them. This is phenomenal. This is fantastic. When we spoke about this, I used the example of GoPro. GoPro are great at making their customers feel like they are part of the content. GoPro are great at providing user-generated content. So their customers go out there with their GoPros. Got mine right here. They go out there with their GoPros. They film themselves in the Alps, in the rivers, wherever they are, doing the high action activities that GoPro users use them for. And they post that on social media, and GoPro reposts it to their own account. How better of a way to make your customers feel valued? They say, hey, you've brought our product, thank you. Let's give you some publicity to show what you've been doing, the amazing things that you've experienced and you've been doing in your own lives. Fantastic approach. Really fantastic approach. And as Kim says here, the ones that you think are absolutely nailing it online, the big brands that are doing so good with socials, they do it because they have an audience first approach as opposed to doing it for the sake of the brand. Again, I'll reinforce it. A few of them have all said the same thing. Peter's talked about it. Steve's talked about it. James has. Pretty much everyone has spoken about it. Think about the customer first, then your brand afterwards. Build out the strategy first, then do the sexy marketing after that. And if you can achieve all of that, you tick all those boxes, well, perfect. You're going to win as a business. So those brands, as Kim says here, that are nailing it is because they have an audience first approach and their customers feel valued by the brand. They see themselves in the content every single day. If you do that, you build a really strong community. Your brand loyalty is going to go through the roof, and you build your brand into their lifestyle. The connection that you have is so deep, so deep. It goes back and forth, and you can't ask for a much better relationship with your customers than that. Kim also reinforced the idea of making sure the walls of your house are built first before putting the roof on. She said, it's the messaging. It is absolutely key. Anyone can put the most amount of editing into a video, but not everything can make that messaging that resonates. I think about that Nike example we spoke about earlier. That is a 60-second brand film, which is one single shot. The production quality is nowhere near what you see someone like Qantas bring forward. But it doesn't matter what the production quality is. In that Nike example or the Qantas example, the messaging is incredibly clear. And if you develop a really clear, concise, and detailed message that you want to communicate in your film to your customers, then irrespective of the production quality, whether you film it with your phone, whether you film it on a professional camera as we are recording this, whether you do it yourself or you have a professional video production company like us do it for you, it doesn't matter. The messaging is key. And if the messaging is not there, then you could have the highest production quality. You will simply not get the results in marketing. It is as straightforward as that. My final nugget of gold for you from the 10-episode review from Kim. She says, so often we can get into the tactical of, oh my gosh, we need to do the campaign. You can actually move forward without a strategy, but you will get to a point where you get stuck. You will get to that point where you go, hang on, where are we going? What are we doing? If I take this back to that rocket analogy, yeah, you can say you're going to the moon and start walking towards it, but you're going to get to the point somewhere between here and China where you think to yourself, hang on, this is not the direction that we're wanting to move in here. How do we actually get to the moon? As Kim says, you can have a bit of a loose strategy. You could probably have no strategy, but at some point you're going to get to a point where you plateau and you're no longer improving. You're no longer getting some sort of ROI. And at that point, this is where you need to This is where you need to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, what is our strategy? What is our plan? What are the executional and tactical steps that you're going to implement? And then get into the actual marketing that you're going to be doing, whether that be SEO, video, etc., etc. I hope you've enjoyed the 10-episode review. Really, really good to go back through the episodes and have a listen to the great pieces of gold that have been brought forward by each of the guests. From Peter Sandor in episode 1 through to Kim Elizabeth James in episode 10. It's been fantastic. I hope you have enjoyed it. I've had a terrific time participating, hosting, and listening through the podcast. We've got some amazing guests coming up for the next 10 through 11 to 20. So looking forward to the next 10 episodes. I will see you very, very soon. And until then, have a great day.